In the dim light of dawn, Ethan decided to surprise his wife, Clara, with an early visit to the barn where she spent her mornings. What he expected was a serene picture of Clara caring for their horses, a passion of hers that brought them together. Instead, he stumbled upon a scene that left him speechless, his heart racing with confusion and disbelief. As he watched from the shadows, unable to move, Ethan's face turned a ghostly shade of pale. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. It was still early in the morning, and Clara obviously had no idea that she was being watched. She was even softly humming as she continued her meticulous work, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Ethan held his breath as he kept his eyes on her and their horse, Angel, contemplating whether he should confront her or just leave. Whatever Clara had been doing in the barn, there had to be some kind of explanation for it. She was a smart woman, and she took great care of their horses. When Ethan had almost finished his second cup of coffee, he heard the door of the kitchen open and Clara's voice say, "Good morning, honey." She was behaving exactly the same as always, and there was nothing weird about her. After breakfast, they took 2 of the horses out for a ride. They owned 8 horses in total, but 2 of them, Angel and Zeus, were race horses. They had won spectacular prizes before, and they were going to participate in another high-stakes competition soon. Clara and Ethan trained with them as often as they could, hoping to win another prize. Ethan immediately felt guilty for mistrusting Clara, and he wondered whether he should come clean to her. One evening, Ethan found Clara organizing the barn, meticulously checking the horses' gear. He offered to help, trying to engage her in conversation about their care. To his disappointment, Clara kept her answers brief, focusing on her tasks, avoiding eye contact. Ethan, sensing her evasion, decided to respect her space, quietly working alongside her. Ethan just couldn't shake the feeling that Clara was keeping something from him. One day, Ethan found Zeus lying down, less energetic than usual, prompting an immediate concern. He fetched Clara, and together they examined Zeus, checking his temperature and looking for signs of injury. Throughout the entire day, Clara stayed by Zeus's side, brushing his coat and whispering sweet, comforting words to him. Ethan, of course, noticed her frequent checks on Zeus's condition, her brow furrowed in worry. To help her, Ethan decided to clean the rest of the barn thoroughly, hoping a cleaner environment might help Zeus recover faster. Ethan began inspecting the barn more closely, checking each stall for anything unusual. After his thorough inspection, Ethan found no obvious reason for Zeus's illness. While cleaning the farm another time, Ethan stumbled upon a locked cabinet in the barn, one that used to be open for all. With a shrug, he decided to ask her about it later, hoping it was just a new measure for keeping valuable equipment safe. When Ethan brought up the cabinet at dinner, Clara quickly dismissed it, saying it was just for extra supplies. But her quick glance away and the haste in her response made Ethan pause. He nodded, pretending to be satisfied with the answer, but the seeds of doubt were planted. Why would simple supplies need to be locked away? As the competition neared, Ethan noticed Clara spending more time in the barn, often with her phone glued to her ear. The atmosphere at home grew tense, with conversations becoming shorter and more strained. The next day, Ethan met with his friend Mike at a coffee shop to discuss his concerns. Mike listened intently as Ethan explained the situation, then suggested that trust and open communication were key. As the day came to a close, Ethan helped Clara lead Angel back to their trailer. He glanced at the officials, still hovering nearby, and felt a momentary pang of concern. However, he shook it off, choosing to focus on the positive outcome of the day. Together with Clara, they began the journey home, filled with plans to celebrate Angel's victory further. That same evening, Ethan found himself checking Angel's stall, ensuring everything was in order. He noticed that the cabinet that had been locked was open again, and the lock had been removed. He breathed a sigh of relief and thought that everything was fine again. He had just imagined that anything was even going on in the first place. For sure. Ethan and Clara got ready for bed, thinking back to the day's events and Angel's victory. They were both incredibly proud of her, and they hoped that Zeus would be able to join her at the next competition as well. As dawn broke, Ethan and Clara's victory celebration came to an abrupt halt with the unexpected arrival of the competition officials at their doorstep. They gathered in the living room where the officials, with somber expressions, began to explain the situation, casting a shadow over the morning's light. Ethan had not seen this coming. The officials announced Angel's disqualification, leaving Ethan stunned. Ethan, struggling to grasp the reality of the situation, pressed the officials for a reason behind the disqualification. They were using difficult words, so he had no idea what they were actually saying at first. Ethan's mind raced as he tried to connect the dots, recalling past events with a new perspective. And finally, it all clicked. The revelation brought Ethan back to that early morning in the barn, triggering a cascade of memories. He realized then that there were signs he had overlooked, moments that should have warned him. Clara paced the living room, then turned to face Ethan, tears streaming down her face. "I did it," she whispered, admitting to doping Angel. She recounted the overwhelming pressure to win, her fears of losing everything they had worked for. Ethan stood motionless, absorbing Clara's confession. He felt a storm of emotions raging within him. He watched Clara closely, her confession laying bare the chasm that had formed between them. Ethan's silence filled the room, heavy with the weight of his conflicting feelings. Ethan finally spoke, his voice low. "Why?" he asked, seeking to understand Clara's motives. Clara explained her fear of failure, the financial ruin looming over them. She showed Ethan the threatening letters from creditors, her desperate hope that a win could save them. Ethan listened, the pieces of Clara's actions falling into place, revealing the pressure cooker she had been living in. The room was silent as Ethan and Clara sat down, facing the reality of what had been done. Clara pulled out the competition's rule book, pointing to the section on doping, explaining the potential consequences. They discussed the immediate need to consult a lawyer to prepare for the investigation that would follow. It was a moment of reckoning, the start of a long journey to mend what had been broken. The next day, Ethan and Clara stood in front of the racing committee, presenting their case. Clara spoke earnestly, admitting her mistake and expressing her regret. Ethan supported her, explaining their commitment to rectify the situation. The next day, Ethan and Clara met with a consultant to discuss new training and care protocols. They took meticulous notes, asking detailed questions to ensure they understood every aspect. Together, they revised the horses' diets, exercise routines, and rest schedules, implementing the new standards immediately. Their commitment to change was evident in their thoroughness and dedication to doing right by horses. As they sat down to review the revised care plans, Ethan and Clara knew the road ahead would be challenging. They discussed future competitions, debating the merits of re-entering the racing circuit under their new ethos. Decisions were made with careful consideration, knowing each step forward was a move towards rebuilding their reputation. They agreed to take it one day at a time, focusing on the welfare of their horses above all.